Welcome. My name is Kai and this is my colleague Andries. And today we're going to tell you how you use low-code and navigate through the pandemic.
I would like to share with you some stories about adaptation in a fast-changing world. In March last year, our world changed incredibly fast. First, we have to respond to the crisis. Then we have to adapt to the new standards. And we have to start to innovate based on the new reality. And we do it the clever way. And when the pressure is high, you want to work with a trusted partner. And our low-code platform of choice is Mendix. It really showed its true power. I'd like to share with you two cases. One in the healthcare, the other one in the public sector. Thereafter, my colleague Kai will introduce you to a field service management solution. The Dutch Health Authority is responsible for coordinating the emergency care for the COVID patients. At the height of the pandemic, the health system was flooded and a quick response was needed. We built a central capacity management system and we drastically reduced the waiting list by orchestrating the distribution of the patients across the hospitals in the Netherlands. The organization already had a low-code practice in place, and together with the team we built an application in just a single weekend. Another example is how we help to adapt to a new standard. As in the Netherlands, our city council is the central place for the public sector. During the lockdown, many of the services were inaccessible because they have to be done in person. Together with one of the biggest municipalities in the Netherlands, we built a personal digital service desk. This made it possible to book and meet a municipality officer, electronic identification and document management. This allowed the civilians to request a new passport, register a new birth, do a notice of marriage. Actually, it totally removed the need to leave your home. But even more amazing is that we built such a production application in just 2 weeks with 2 developers. And we completed all of the requirements of the whole portal in 2 months. And what's so lovely about this is, it wasn't temporary. The access to the service in a personal digital environment was so well received, it became a part of the new normal, and will likely become part of the standard across the Netherlands. So, with low-code, we can reduce the development time, but can we do it even further? Some projects take months to complete. However, they're based on a common business pattern. And at Clever, we're specialized in building adaptive solutions. They're upgradable, maintainable applications with the possibility for each customer to adapt and extend based on low-code. Our solution kickstarted development and reducing the time to market sometimes with 80%, while keeping the power of low-code. Let's do a deep dive in our field service management solution with Kai.
Thank you, Andries. Just as Andries mentioned earlier, low-code technologies are at its best in changing circumstances. The COVID pandemic was an extreme example of immediate change. Companies needed even more go-to-market speed for new software and a lot of flexibility to adapt to market circumstances. Let me illustrate how low-code based solutions can help with that by using field service management as a use case. So, to give you a little bit of context, what is field service management? It's a collective name for all activities performed by traveling employees of an organization who do their jobs on site. Although in fact, all activities, no matter what they are, could be seen as field services, most people refer to field services as technical and construction activities when they talk about field service management. And you can think of installation, repairs and maintenance. So then a little bit about the process to give you a little bit more context. Let's say we're a solar panel company and we install solar panels on the roofs of buildings. The process usually starts with a customer requesting an installation of a solar panel. And then a back office employee tries to precisely identify what materials and what skills are required. And then a planner plans the prepared job by assigning it to a field worker who is best suited for the job. given its location, time frame, and skills. On the planned date, the field worker travels to the specified location and installs the solar panels and lets the customer sign off the job. And afterwards, all data about the installation is gathered, such as time spent, materials used, and services performed. This data is then analyzed in the back office and sent and used for example, for sending out invoices and finding out how the process can be improved. And this process, this entire process, repeats itself again and again. And since most of you are developers, you might be wondering what functionality is needed for such a field service management process. And the supporting software usually consists of work order creation. So based on all kinds of triggers, for example, a phone call, an API call that has been called by an external system, or maybe even an email, those all trigger work orders. And then it's always something about management and monitoring of technicians, the scheduling of work orders and order management. And it's also about vehicle, technician and location tracking. And in field service management, it's very important to keep track of where your technicians are and what their current status is. And if you are doing something with locations, you need route optimization, GPS navigation, and you need to keep track of your driver logs. And of course, parts and inventory management. Bringing the right materials to your job is mandatory for a successful installation. And of course, if you want to invoice right. So all this talk about field service management, why is this interesting for you as a no-code or a low-code enthusiast? Well, because things are going to change in field service management. And of course, not as immediate and on the same scale as the COVID pandemic, but the same principles apply, and that's why I think it's important for you to know. And if we simplify the trends in field service management, the trends in the market that are going to shake up the market as well. The first one is that the field service management market is due for dramatic growth. The market size will reach about $9 billion by 2026, which is a compounded growth of 70% each year, annually. And that's a lot. And the second thing is that there's an increasing shortage of skilled field workers. And this requires a lot of optimization in the field service process to optimize resource utilization. And next to that, all waste in the process needs to be eliminated. There's an extreme focus on being first time right. The costs of having to go back to a customer because errors were made in the preparation becomes more and more costly as field service workers' rates will go up and up. And the third one is customer experience and user experience requirements are rising rapidly. Customers these days expect options. They want to have access to self-service channels so they can call in, for example, a broken device 24/7 without having to wait for the next morning. And in the case this becomes too complicated, customers also expect to be assisted using these self-service channels, for example. And next to that, customers expect more intelligent ways of doing service or receiving service. For example, by doing preventative maintenance, by detecting an issue before it even happens, by closely monitoring appliances through, for example, IoT sensors. And all these market changes, market circumstances, scream for more customized glove-fitting software. And in a market where globally the software engineers are even more scarce than field workers, demand will likely not meet supply. And this is where low-code comes in. By being able to make software development available for a bigger crowd and by enabling software developers to speed up delivery, this gap can be closed. And low-code development is a required skill to keep being able to adapt these processes, for example, in the field of field service management, at a pace that is required. But now, let's make it even more specific. Let's look at a customer case. So within the field service management domain, I want to show the value of low-code through the example of Econic. And Econic is a company that's working in the energy transition field. And their goal, their ambition is to transform 1 million homes into self-powered dwellings called e-homes. And to put this 1 million into perspective, that's about 13% of all Dutch homes. And through installation and maintenance of sustainable energy solutions like solar panels or heat pumps, meters, batteries, which are all traditional field service management devices, they want to do the transformation. And we, as Clever, as a company, have been partnering with Econic by developing a low-code platform based on our low-code field service management product that we've developed internally. Within this rapidly changing market, Econic challenged itself even more. They wanted to be a one-stop shop for everything related to making your home more sustainable. But they quickly realized that most of their customers were not going to invest in all solutions and all sustainable devices at once. And they would probably spread out all these investments over a couple of years. And this meant that a short-term relationship, that they have to move from a short-term relationship, which is often the case in field service management traditionally, they had to switch to keeping their focus on long-term relationship with customers, because they could offer them all other sustainable devices as well over a longer period of time. And the future trends that we discussed in the previous slide quickly became today's truth for Econic, and which meant that they needed to act upon this immediately. And since we're all talking about software here, it came down to a couple of requirements. There needed to be an extreme focus on customer experience. They wanted to have personalized and on-point digital communication, and they wanted to have the best self-service portals that they could find to facilitate, in the end, the long-term relationships with the customers that they were aiming for. The second thing is that they needed to have an extremely efficient workflow to accomplish two things. First, to get the most out of existing resources by focusing on being first time right. And secondly, if you are to repeat a process 1 million times, each tiny hiccup in the process can become quite cumbersome. So Econic wanted to be able to eliminate as much of those hiccups as they possibly could without being constrained by software. And the last requirement was that they wanted to be able to continuously improve. They wanted to have that possibility because they knew that if things are going to change so rapidly, that in the end their software needed to change as well. But so far so good. At this point in my story, there is still no compelling reason yet for the use of low-code. So what Econic did, they looked at the market, they did some research, and they looked at all vendors and decided that off-the-shelf did not meet their requirements. They concluded that their innovative goals were far more progressive than those of the average competitor in the market. So after a research period, they came to the conclusion that they did not have a solution in the market that they could buy, and they, at that moment in time, only had 4 months left for the first home of those 1 million to be transformed. So what could Econic do? What were their options? Well, the first one was to buy an off-the-shelf solution that allowed for customization, like they wanted, on all aspects of the software. And that's crucial. They wanted to be able to customize everything for the smoothest experience as possible. And they looked at all vendors. They looked at Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, ServiceNow, all those big players in the market. And they concluded that they were all pretty expensive, but still limited in possibilities. You were not able to configure everything and change everything that was in the process. And the second option was to build a high-code solution. But due to the enormous shortage in skilled software developers, and the first estimations for the time to market were that it would take about 3 years instead of the 4 months that they had. And again, it's significantly higher costs. Plus the fact that Econic was pioneering and they still didn't know exactly what they wanted to have built, they were afraid that high-code custom development was not agile enough for them to account for future wishes that they still didn't know of. And the third option that they had was using low-code. They could use a low-code adaptable solution, an adaptable field service management solution, to cover all the fundamentals. And they would be able to extend and change the solution where needed to exactly meet their wishes, to create a 100% glove fit for their MVP, their minimum viable product, and without the need of using high-code software developers, while still being able to keep innovating and being agile. Choosing low-code as a basis for clever field service management was a no-brainer for Econic. And within only 4 months' time, we adapted our field service management solution to precisely fit the needs of Econic. And we did that with a team of only 3 developers. We deployed work order intake. We created a workflow management tool based on our solution, and we tweaked and changed it just as much as Econic needed. And we adapted our planning functionality for both their own field workers, and we even added functionality for their subcontractors. We added route optimization, and we precisely configured stakeholder portals to fit Econic's needs. And we even deployed a mobile app that I'll show you here on the screen. And our low-code developers made changes to this functionality according to Econic's wishes. So it was an exact fit. It was a precise glove fit. So where are we today? What were the results of this, well, let's say, great experiment? Well, at day 0, Econic and our developers had only an idea. And then after 4 months, we released a minimum viable product created by only 4 developers. So we dramatically cut down the development time from the 3 years that was estimated based on high-code to only 4 months using low-code and our field service management solution. And then after 6 months, we released a fully featured version 1 that they were totally comfortable with. And today, it's all about learning. It's about using. It's about getting feedback from users. It's about getting feedback from their field service workers. And they now start their process of continuous improvement. But the most important thing of all is that they felt confident. They were confident and ready for the future, and they had the feeling that they were ahead of competition. They were confident that they would be able to transform 1 million houses into e-homes in an efficient and scalable way. And next to that, they were so enthusiastic about the possibilities that they started investigating even more innovative ways of doing their business, such as, for example, using augmented reality technology to support remote assistance, still using low-code as a fundament. The possibilities are endless. So thank you so much for your attention, and Andries, thanks for sharing your valuable insights. And if you want to know more, please use the QR code that's in your screen or just send us an email.